Hey guys, it is massively cooling down here, which means my Zinnia are coming to the end of their lives. So it's time for me to do my annual Zinnia review to look back on how these guys did, which ones I'm going to go grow again next year, and which ones will not make it. For anyone that doesn't know, my name's Peggy and I am growing a cut flower garden here on my allotment in Kanagawa Prefecture, Japan, which is just south of Tokyo in USDA Zone 9B. Thanks for checking out my channel. So for the last few years, I have grown quite a lot of different varieties of Zinnia to try and figure out which ones I like. And you can look back on my previous reviews to see how that went. This year I decided on which ones I actually liked and tried to grow more of those. Now I am severely limited here in Japan by what seeds I can get. I don't have a massive variety that I can get. I would love to be able to get my hands on some of the floret zinnia that are out there, some of the softer colours, some of the more interesting shapes, but I am very much limited by what's available in Japan, and I am not allowed to post seeds into Japan. They're very strict in their customs here, which I have found out in the past. You can see a video on that as well, when all of my seeds got destroyed. So this is the best of what I could find to plant, and it's been a mixed bag. Let's have a look. We'll start here. Now, this was quite a surprising success. This is just a mixed bag that I got at my local garden centre of small kind of pom-pom style zinnia, and they are really small, which isn't necessarily what I'm looking for, but these guys have produced and produced and produced all summer when everything else was dying because it was so hot. These guys didn't care. Now that we're coming into autumn, they still don't care. They're still going really strong, and I've actually used them a lot, and I'm using them in a surprising way. Before, I've been growing kind of the bigger zinnia, and so they're more of a statement flower in what I'm making, but these turned into more of my airy and little twinkly bits, and I really liked having them. I really liked having them to an extent. At some point this has been all that I've had, and because they are so small, they don't fill out a bouquet, they don't fill out an arrangement, they really are just kind of an addition to things. So I kind of feel like I've had a lot of this and not a lot of the other things, which isn't a fault of this flower, it's a fault of the others, and we'll get to that. The other thing is the colours of them. So here are some that I've cut, and the colours were really varied. I had quite a lot of this. I really like how full of pom-pom they are, you know, and they have a great vase life as well. And a lot of them were this kind of soft pink, but there were some that were a much hotter pink, like this. I had some, this one's kind of past its best, but this much softer pink, almost kind of lilac-y purple colour. So a real range of pinks in there, which was very nice. I'm not really into pink, and we're going to get to that as well, because that has been a problem for me this year. So a lot of different colours of pink, and then this red. Again, these have all kind of gone past their best, they do need pulled out now. But yeah, this red. And I found it really hard to use this. I'm not a huge fan of red, but also it didn't really go with a lot else that was in the garden. Now, in the spring I had red tulips, I had some red anemone, that kind of thing, but they weren't coming up at the same time. And so yeah, I was really struggling to use this, and I kind of forced myself. They did go quite nicely with some of my rudbeckia, and I did make up a couple of bouquets using that, but it just wasn't my favourite. So if I could get the mix without the red, I just found that I was leaving these on the bush and they were getting wasted, and there's no point in growing something that you're not going to use. So yeah, if I could get it without that, if I could get it with more of the kind of soft purpley colour rather than the hot pink, I would maybe go for that as well. But I can't really fault them for a mixed bag from the local garden centre. They've just pumped out flowers for me all season long, and I got this many, which is way more. I've not once managed to cut them clean and use them all. There's an incredibly yappy little dog over there, I do apologise. Yeah. I've never once managed to cut the bush clean. It's always been way more than I could use, and I've just counted and there's only 5 plants in there, which is so much more than I could need. If only one of them wasn't red. Although looking at them on the camera, it actually looks quite nice. But yeah, I've not been very good at using it. So, will I grow them next year? Yeah, I probably will. If I had more choice and varieties, would I buy this one again? Probably not. If some of my other flowers had done better this year, would I still go for these? Probably not. But this year they have been a bit of a lifesaver for me. When there's been nothing else going in the garden, these guys have given a pop of colour into what has mostly been foliage bouquets. So yeah, they're coming back. Absolute workhorse. Need to learn how to use red. Next, on to something that did surprisingly badly. This. I still have one here coming. This was supposed to be my Queen Lime series. Now, in the past, I have grown the Queen Lime, and I absolutely love them, especially at this time of the year. They're kind of creepy. They go really well with my amaranth, with my dark dahlia. I really, really like them, and I like that kind of acid green colour. And so this time I thought, well, instead of just having the green, I'll get a mix and I'll see if I like there's the Queen Lime Red and the Queen Lime Orange. And I direct seeded, and that has been a massive issue for me this year, is that they just didn't seem to like being direct seeded, and very few of them actually germinated for me. And of the ones that did germinate, they didn't get any taller than that. Now this is kind of crisped up and died away, but you can see, compared to the ones behind me, this is nothing at all. And it didn't give me that many flowers. The flowers that came, I'm guessing, were more of the lime orange colour, but they just kind of looked a dirty brown. And I don't know if it's because a lot of time they were dirty brown because they were so close to the soil, when the rain hit, the mud was bouncing back up and actually dirtying the flower. But they just did not perform for me, and I'm really upset because in the past my Queen Lime have been the best flowers in the garden. Absolutely love them. So this is definitely one I'm going to try again. But instead of buying a mix, I might just go make sure that I've definitely got my Queen Lime. So I'll get a separate bag of them and then maybe decide if I want the orange or the red. Now, to be quite honest, I can't tell the difference between the orange and the red, having not had them in the garden myself. If you have a preference, if you know what the difference is, please let me know in the comments below and recommend which one you would go for if you were going to choose one. But I am going to definitely get the lime. I might get one of the other colours, and I am going to be starting these at home. Now Zinnia, if you read online, is one of the ones where they say you don't need to start it at home. They like slightly rougher conditions, they like being just put in the ground, they don't particularly like being transplanted. But for me, that's just a no-go. It just didn't work, and I found that in quite a lot of the things around my garden. So I tried to be a bit lazy this year by just skipping that start at home, pot them on, then bring them out. I thought I can make myself a little bit less work and see if I could direct seed, and I've found that no I can't. I have lost so many plants this year. I've been quite disappointed in how small the ones that I direct seeded came, if they came at all. So I am going to go back to starting things at home and then putting them in the garden when I know they are established. I'm also having quite a problem with things just disappearing, and I assume they're being eaten. Now, not only my amaranth, which I've just found covered in little beetle, has been eaten, but a lot of the other seedlings that I have started at home and brought in are disappearing, so something's eating them. So I think I'm going to have to keep things at home until they're quite established and then move them into the garden so that they can survive a little bit of pest damage. But yeah, so my Queen Lime's definitely coming back, but it will be started at home and then transplanted in. Behind the Queen Lime I have an equally sad looking, this is supposed to be one of the cactus, this is Cactus Senorita, and yeah, I direct seeded these. I got one or two came, only one survived, and it never really put out flowers. And this might have been the same as the Queen Lime. I shouldn't have direct seeded it. It might have wanted to have started at home, been more established. But also, this is my third time trying to grow this. Now, the first two times, they came a lot better than this, but they still weren't really a producer. I got a few nice flowers out of them. The first ones were quite big, and then they kind of dwindled down. They were never a showstopper for me, and they just didn't produce enough for the amount of room that they were taking up in the garden. So I'm gonna call it. This is the third time that I've tried these, and I still don't like them. I like them on paper, I like the look of them when I look at the seed packet, but just from the reality of them, they're not giving enough flowers for me to continue giving them the space in the garden. So it's out. So from one I have grown a few times before to one that was new to me, it was this one, and I was really excited about growing this. Usually I am not a fan of the kind of variated colours, especially in the leaves, kind of stripy looking leaves, all different colours in the flowers. I don't really like them, but I thought I would try this one, and it's because I quite like, I call them my blood splatter ones, and I had them in the Zinnia, I had them in the tulip, I had the Carnival de Nice in the tulip, which I absolutely loved and is definitely coming back next year. And I had a dahlia, which is yet to flower for me, which was the same kind of red and white. So I kind of thought this would be my theme for the year, to grow these red and white ones and see if I actually liked them. Again, these didn't get very big. They didn't, only a couple of them actually germinated from the direct seeding again. They didn't produce massive flowers for me. They didn't produce a lot of flowers for me. But the main reason I'm not going to grow them again is because when I saw them, when they actually grew, they are definitely, although it looks quite red there, but they are definitely more pink and white than red. Especially the first ones that came up were almost hot pink and red, and that was not what I was expecting and not what I was looking for. Now luckily nearly everything else that came up in the garden was also pink, so they actually went quite well, but it's just not what I wanted to grow, and they're not big enough and showy enough for me to put them in the garden again. So this was a one time and done. I won't be putting these back in the garden. Yeah, just not into it. So the only other one I had in my garden was this. Look at the size of that. That's the kind of zinnia I like. This is a Benarese giant. Now Benarese giant. Feel free to correct me on that. This I have grown before. I grew this as a mix and it did amazingly. The flowers were huge. It produced so many. It went from early summer right through to the end of autumn. It was one of the last ones I was cutting and I loved it. The problem was that I had it as a mix and it gave me a lot of the red again, which I just don't use, and a lot of like bright in your face offensive yellow, which again is not my bag. So I decided last time that although I loved them, I didn't want to get a mix because there were so many that were just not being used. I wasn't cutting them, they were taking up room in the garden and they weren't being used, which is silly. So I tried to only grow the ones that I liked. The problem was I couldn't find packets of only the ones that I liked. So in a kind of desperate, oh my god, I'm not going to have anything in the garden at all to grow, I decided that I would at least get these, which are the pink ones. Now on the camera they're looking quite red, and this one it's actually beautiful. It's so deep in the middle and then it gets lighter on the outside. I love these so much. And these are kind of a different style. I think they're actually coming from a different plant, where these ones are much fuller and these ones are a bit more open, not as many petals, and a bit of a softer pink. But both of these have been producing and producing and producing, which is great, except they're the only ones that I have because my Queen Limes didn't come, because the cactus ones, which were a kind of paler orange, didn't come. I've basically just had a hugely, massively pink garden this year. And although these were beautiful, I had, what's in here? 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm gonna say there's only 4 plants here. And again, you're a cosmos, why are you in there? There's only 4 of these plants in there and they gave me too much, just too much pink. I could not use that many flowers. I was cutting them every week and I'd come back and they were full again. Massively long stems, great vase life, absolutely brilliant flowers. I just didn't need 4 of the same colour in such a small cutting garden. This garden is just for me. It's just for me to take flowers home and arrange with them for fun. And I just felt that week after week after week, I was making the same arrangements and there was no variation in the flower, there was no variation in the colour, there was very little that I could do, and it was just a bit boring, to be honest. So while I will plant these again and hope that this nice bushy one, which I do prefer to this more open one, I will plant them again. I just might have to go back to the mix, because if I have to choose between ones that I'm not using as much of, but it has these pink, it had a softer pink, it had a really nice white in it. I love the polar bear ones, the big white ones. If I can't find individual bags of the colours I like, I might just have to go back to using the mix, because at least there was some variation there and I wasn't just getting the same bouquets every week. But as a standalone flower, I love these. They're still my favourites. If I was only to grow one zinnia, it would be the giant variety. Yeah, they're great. So although my flowers didn't germinate as much as I wanted, and I didn't get, basically 2 of them completely failed, I did have some differences because this was the first time I was growing on my new plot. The first one is that these guys lasted a lot longer. They dealt with the drought a lot better. They have been pumping out even on the days where we were hitting 41, 42 degrees here. These guys were still flowering and didn't stop. I went away for 2 weeks, 10 days, and I came back and these guys were fine. They really managed well with very, very little rain and the very, very hot temperatures, which surprised me because in my old garden they didn't. And I'm putting that down to the soil. The soil holds the water here a lot better. So that was a nice surprise for me. Secondly, although we're at the end of the season now, so you can see these are covered in powdery mildew and I am about to cut them all out. This has come a lot later in the season than it did on my previous plot as well. This has literally only been the last couple of weeks and these guys are all getting to the end of the life anyway. So, I'm not actually going to treat the powdery mildew. I'm just going to take the whole plant out. So, I have had some wins here. I have found that the conditions for growing the flowers, especially the zinnia here, have been a lot better. I will say it's been the same for my cosmos the last 3-4 years. On my old allotment, my cosmos was the first to crisp up, first to die, and I didn't get anything. And it's still pumping out now and has been all summer long as well. So I'm really happy that the soil seems to be better here, just with a lot more organic matter in it. And that is making a massive difference to how these guys survive the summer. So of course I'm going to have zinnia in next year. I don't think you can have a cutting garden without having zinnia. I'm just going to go back to starting everything at home, potting it on, bringing it out when it's established to make sure that my garden is full and that I have a variety instead of just 4 or 5 of the same plant. So I am now just going to say, okay, that's the end of the season for these guys for me. I'm going to cut them back and get them out of the garden before the powdery mildew spreads anywhere else, which is kind of sad, but my dahlia have just started to bloom. Because it was so dry and so hot this year, my dahlia really stalled, and I've been reading online that a lot of people in the UK have had the same problem this year because it's been really, really dry. Dahlia are drought resistant, but they still need water before they're going to start blooming. So mine have done absolutely nothing this year until now, where they're going crazy. Look how pretty they are. So I am out of zinnia, but I do have dahlia to be taking home with me instead. Mixed bag on how they did this year. I don't know whether to call it a success or a failure. Yeah. What did you guys grow this year? How did they do? Do you have any recommendations? Of course, again, I would really like to get the fancy stuff. I just can't get it here. If you know anywhere I can buy decent zinnia seed in Japan, please let me know. I buy most of my seeds from Taki Seeds or Kokuen. Not sponsored, that's just the only places I've found to buy any kind of decent variety of seed. If you know anywhere else, please do let me know because I am dying to get some different colours and different shapes in this garden. But for next year it will be more of the giants, just different colours. I will be putting this mixed pom-pom in because I can't say no to them. They did so well for me this year, and getting more of my lime in. But I think that will be the only 3 varieties that I actually do next year. So that is all from me for this week. If you want to follow along and see what else is going on in the garden, because as well as my dahlia, I have my amaranth, which is currently being eaten by beetle and I'm not very happy about. I'm about to start some pansy, I have my marigolds, and I have my chrysanthemum all about to bloom. So if you want to follow along, please hit the subscribe button below. If you want to see what I do with my flowers, you can check out my Instagram, which is From the Witch's Garden, and there is a link to that below. And I will see you guys next week. Bye!